Alright, I'm finally going to do a recording on sort of a frequently requested tutorial on basically taking a bunch of frames and sorting them using machine learning models. I've done this with a couple of films now, and honestly I've been kind of hesitant to record a tutorial on it because in my films where there's some like 4,000 to 5,000 frames, this process does take like 3 to 4 days of processing time. I think because for this class, the stop motion class, like it's going to be a little bit shorter. You're going to have maybe 80 frames, 100 frames. I think we can actually look at this, and it's a quite reasonable ask to sort of work with this. So I am also using a Colab notebook here. Again, I wasn't planning on teaching Colab, so it's not really included in this lesson. I have a bunch of other materials on Colab that have been linked to from the syllabus. So if you are interested in learning more about Colab, you can do that there and then come back and walk through this notebook. This notebook is set up so that you don't really need to use Colab, or you don't need to know how Colab works. You just go through and hit each frame or each cell and just hit play, play, play. And I'll talk through what each cell does if you're interested, but for the most part, hopefully you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so let's get started. So first off, you do need your folder of images uploaded to either Google Drive or to Colab directly. If you upload them to Google Drive, which I would probably recommend, you'll run this first cell, and this will just connect to your Google Drive account and will load it into the workspace here. This is sort of your Finder window or your file browser. And when you connect to Drive, you'll be able to access that there. While we wait for that to work, we're going to run this cell as well. This cell is going to install 2 libraries for us. These are the libraries that actually do the sorting methods for us. One is a little bit older, but it's actually still quite popular. It's called LPIPS. The other one is called DreamSim. DreamSim is a newer one, but it's actually a lot less popular. I don't think as many people as sort of saw it or picked up on it. So we'll go ahead and hit play here on the cell. I will say I think LPIPS is faster. It runs a lot quicker. It's maybe not as accurate, especially if you're doing stuff with color. I did find DreamSim works quite well with color. Honestly, I think LPIPS is fine for what the majority of people are doing. But if you are picky or you just want to see the difference between the two, then we can experiment with both, and I'll show you how to do that. This is now installing. Because I actually don't have my images are not yet in Google Drive, I'm going to actually upload them directly here and show you how to do that. So to do this, we're going to right-click in our little browser window over here, and we're going to hit New Folder. And I'm just going to give this folder a name. I'll call it Midjourney. Unfortunately, you can't upload folders directly into Colab. You have to sort of make a folder and then upload your images to it. So I'm going to come back to my Finder here, and these are all the images I want to work with. There are 76 of them, apparently. So we'll just hit Command A to select all of them, and then we'll drag them into the Midjourney folder. These are not the biggest files, so they shouldn't take too long to upload all of them. And of course, as I say that, this may take a minute. So while this uploads, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do next. So I'm uploading the full resolution images here. What size are these? These are about 1280 by 1080, that sort of size. They're not going to be the biggest images. In the past, I've done this with 4K images. And in general, I would say what you want to do is you don't want to process that large of an image. In fact, what you want to do is process very small images. They'll run a little bit faster. And then you're going to sort of link up your small images to your large images to do the final output. That's all built into the notebook here, or these steps are here, but you just need to know that you are doing those steps. So what we're going to do is we're going to install this little library I've made for the past couple years. It's called Dataset Tools. So if you run this cell, this will install Dataset Tools. And I'll come over here and hit refresh. And we should be able to see that folder show up at some point. Might be waiting on the rest of this stuff. So what we want to do is we basically want to take our high-res images and make very small resolution versions of our images. That's going to increase compute. It's going to make all this stuff run a little bit faster. Also, these models are generally meant to run on very small images. Now, there's some challenge there. If you're only looking for the details of things and you make the image smaller, then you might lose some of that detail. There's not much you can do about that. That's just kind of the way these models work. But It's helpful to know that, and I think it also just helps speed up a lot of these processes. Again, with 80 images, like what I'm going to do here, probably not the end of the world. If I had 5,000 images, 8,000 images, I would definitely want to do that process beforehand. And as I've maybe mentioned this before, but like uploading stuff directly to Colab is not the best. I'd always recommend uploading to Drive, especially if you have a lot of images. For this, it'll be fine, not the end of the world. So what we can do here is this next cell here is actually going to do some of our resizing. And all we want to do is point it to our input folder and then give it an output folder name. And I usually just add a dash to the end of my folder name because this library will auto add the dimensions to the end of it. And that'll sort of like, that way I'll know that that's my downsized version. So we're going to go over here. We're going to right click on the Midjourney folder and hit copy path. We're going to paste this in, and then we're going to paste this in again, and I'm just going to leave that dash at the end. Now we can run this cell, and it's going to go in and process all of our images. Now, I'm going to tell you, I think this is going to cause a problem for me. We'll have to double check to make sure that's true. Actually, might not be. I've run into issues where the files in my folder were named, they had like a period in some place other than the extension, and with the library, it kind of messed it up. So let's just double check this. So if we go to this folder here and go to Midjourney-256, actually, it looks like it did fine. Okay, so maybe Midjourney changed how they name stuff, or something else is going on there. But either way, this worked for me. If you only see like one file in here, or not the total number of files you were looking for, there is another cell down here below. What this does is it takes all of these files and it will rename them to be something else. So it'll basically like rename them into just being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That will bypass this sort of problem with your renaming. Since it didn't work for me here, I'm just going to leave it as is. But if you do run into issues, like just DM me, we can figure that out. But yeah, if there is a period in the file name before the extension, this library is kind of messed up. So maybe I should fix, but who knows when I'll get to that. So we'll skip over this cell. We'll skip over this cell. This is going to be like when I had my demo before I screwed stuff up and I was going to replace these. But since I don't need to do that here, I'm not going to run these. Okay, so at this point we are ready to actually run our first process. We're going to run the first one, which is called LPIPs, which again is the faster one. Definitely works better for black and white images, and I would say in general it's probably the one I would recommend people go to because it is a little bit faster. For this, there are only two things we need to put in here. So there is going to be a model selection, and there is a folder. So LPIPs has two different models. One is called Alex, and one is called VGG. These are famous, like old school machine learning models. Everything I've seen has said Alex works better. So in general, I would say just try Alex. If for whatever reason you really want to go ham and like go crazy and just try everything, then you definitely can. In which case you could switch to VGG. I think Alex is probably fine for most people. Next thing we want to do is we want to put in our actual link to our connection to our folder. In this case, I want to point it to the 256 version because that's the smaller one. These have been downscaled to like 256 pixels wide or something like that. So we want to make sure we use this instead of this folder, because this folder is going to load in my high-res images. This one's going to load in my low-res images. So we'll go ahead and right-click on there, hit copy path. Come here, we'll paste that in, and then we're going to run this cell. And this cell will just take a little bit of time because it's going to load our model, and then it's going to also load in our images into sort of the RAM of our notebook here. Cool, so that's done. And let's just check to see how many images we loaded in. This would be a good way to just double check to make sure I got all my images in my big folder. And it looks like I did 75. I think it should be 76. I actually think it's just that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so 76 images. I don't know why the negative one was there. So there are 76 images in here, which is great. That's how many were in my big folder. This cell will now actually just run our process. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play here. And you'll see this is already sort of running through my process. So what it's going to do is it looks for the very first image, and then it looks for the closest match within that. And what you're seeing here is an index of, with the files loaded in, the order in which they showed up here. And you'll see this ran pretty quickly. Now, what this does is it starts and it looks at, like, if there's 76 images, it takes one of them. Then it looks at the other 75. It finds its closest match and then removes that from the list of future options. So when you only have 100 images, it runs very quickly. When you have 4,000 images, it's going to look at 3,999 images, pull out one. Then it's going to look at 3,998 images and pull out one. So that the more images you have, the longer this process will take almost exponentially, like not exponentially, but like beyond linear. So it's not just be like as fast as that was times however many images you have. It's going to be much, much bigger. So just keep that in mind. Again, with 100 images, totally fine, but some of you might want to be doing some crazier stuff. And if you've got 5,000, 6,000 images, this process will take much, much longer. Okay, so that ran. Let me just double check this other thing here, just like move some variables around because the code is a little messy. I'm not like traditionally a programmer, so like a lot of stuff is kind of like hacked together. Okay, so now we want to connect, again, our high-res folder. So we want to make sure we connect this to our high-res images. We'll hit copy. We'll paste this in. All this is going to do is basically like make sure that all of the corresponding order that's set up here connects to our high-res and our low-res together. And then what we want to make is we're going to make a new folder that is going to be our output of our images. So I'm just going to name this Midjourney output, and I'll run this one. And this one throws in, oops, there we go. I need to run this cell up here. Let's just check to make sure all the files are there. 76, so 76 and 76 are the same. Then we'll run this again, and it just outputs that exact same order. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is we want to turn this into a video. So again, we want to set a frame rate. I usually like to set a frame rate of like 8, 10, or 12, something like that. So I'm going to leave it at 8. And then I want to give it a file name. So I'm just going to name this Midjourney output. And let's just add to the end lpips so I can see if it's any different from the other one. So go ahead and run this. This is going to turn this into a ProRes high quality file, which in this case will not be that large, right? Because it's like only like 100 images and it's only like 1080 by 720 or something like that. If I were to do this with 4K images, this file would be quite large. In my case, it's been like 4 gigs, 10 gigs. Just be aware of that. In this case, I think it's going to be like 40 megabytes at most. Let me just double check this. Come on. There we go. And if I hover over this, yeah, you see it's 56 megabytes. So we'll go ahead and download this. Downloads and uploads in Colab are a little bit slower. If you have a really big file, I recommend moving it into Drive and then downloading it directly from Drive. It'll be a little bit faster. In this case, it doesn't really matter. So here is the lpips sorted version. Looks pretty good. I'm kind of interested in like if some of these faces are very like close to each other and it is kind of giving me that structure. Okay, so now we've run this. It's basically done for the lpips version. I'm going to show you how to do the DreamSim version as well, although it's basically the exact same steps. The DreamSim version is down here, and again, we want to point it to our low-res files. So we'll copy our Midjourney 256 path, paste that in, and we'll hit run. You'll notice the files here are larger because DreamSim actually works. I believe DreamSim does what's called a mixture of experts, meaning it actually runs 3 different models, and then it sort of averages out those results, and then that's what it picks. So that's kind of why it runs a little bit longer. It's also just like bigger files and that sort of thing. It's you know, sort of this funny thing where like as models get more newer, I guess, like, for lack of a better term, they tend to take up more VRAM and like be bigger just because it tends to work better. So in this case, you'll see these a little bit slower. So these are going to run and download. While this happens, I'm going to go ahead and just get everything started here. So this cell, again, will just run our sequence. Is just going to basically like do the process. So I'm going to hit play here just while we wait. And then while I'm down here, I'm also going to put together, like, sort of just update my files. So this needs to point to the high-res folder, which is going to be Midjourney. This is going to point to a new set of folders for DreamSim. So basically, this is our high-res initial images. These are our high-res output images in the right order. So basically, they get renamed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then down here we have our final video output. So I'm just going to paste this in, so it's going to be Midjourney output dream sim. So this will generate our video. And it looks like our files are still downloading here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video. It might take a little bit of time longer for this to download. Once this process starts running, I'll restart the video and we can look at what's actually happening here. Alright, so this finished downloading and then our process has gotten started here. You will notice that when you run Dream Sim, it takes a little bit longer for it to find each frame. So we'll see what this actually ends at. I just looked up, if you scroll up here, a nice thing that Colab does, it'll tell you how long it takes for each cell to run. So you can see when I ran the LPIPs cell to actually process using LPIPs, it took 10 seconds. It looks like, if I had to guess, I'm already well past 10 seconds just with Dream Sim. So you'll see even just finding each frame, it takes a couple seconds. So I think this is going to take, I don't know, maybe a couple minutes instead of 10 seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and we'll come back when this is finished, and then we'll pick up and we'll generate our video output. Alright, so that took 2 minutes. So 10 seconds compared to 2 minutes. Again, if you got 100 images, you probably don't care and you might want to use Dream Sim if you find it more accurate. You get thousands upon thousands of images and you've got a different story. It's, you know, exponentially longer to process or whatever. So keep that in mind as you get like to more and more images. Alright, we've made our images and now we want to actually just run these files. So again, this file is going to connect or order between our low-res images and our high-res images. This is going to output those files there. I kind of want to show what this actually looks like. So as we'll talk about in class, a really helpful thing for anything you do with FFmpeg is that your images be sorted and ordered using padded zeros. So instead of just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you actually put a bunch of zeros in front of each of those numbers. Because sometimes, depending on the tool, 10 will be interpreted as next to 1 because it starts with 1. So by adding a bunch of zeros in front of it, you're able to sequence things using FFmpeg better. So we'll go ahead and so we've now made our folder. So now we want to output this to a video file. So again, we'll set the frame rate to 8, and then we already gave this a Midjourney output of Dream Sim. And there we go. And we'll download this one as well. And let's just open up both of these. So we've got our LPIPs and our Dream Sim. Just going to open these up side by side. I would be shocked if we actually saw different results between these two because they're really not that different. You know, first off, the content is very similar, and then also, you know, just I wouldn't expect to see a lot of difference here. I have seen a lot of big differences in other films I've made, but I wouldn't necessarily see it here. I believe I hit Shift Return, I can play both, yeah. Yeah, I think those were the exact same. I'd have to go by frame by frame. Yeah, okay, I'm pretty sure those are the exact same. There might have been very, very subtle differences in one or two of the sequences. So overall, very similar. Again, this is probably what I'd recommend LPIPs to start with. It's just a little bit faster, and you don't really even need to wait at all for 100 frames. But that's the process. So with the images I have here, I could probably do this manually, like very easily, but maybe if I download the images out of sequence or whatever it was, or like, I don't know, maybe the files got named weird or something, it'd be easier for me to run this process to actually sequence things together. I think it's a really interesting process. Again, depending on the types of images you use and you try really different images, you might get different results between these two models, so it's worth exploring more. But otherwise, I think it's a cool tool. I would love to see more people play with it. I don't know that anyone else has done this except me, so now I'm sharing it with you. If you do make something cool with it, please let me know. If you run into issues with it, or like, I will say that sometimes I find like I disagree with some of the choice it makes in terms of sequencing, but that is how it goes. So just be aware of that. But anyway, that's everything you do here. Cool. I'm glad I finally recorded this and people will stop bugging me about it. So I hope you make something cool with it, enjoy it, and we'll look at more sequencing techniques in this class soon.